Hi, my name is Ken Asserson. I wrote microbiomeprescription.com, and today I want to go through a new feature that was just added. It is a research WAC experimental feature. In other words, it's something which may or may not produce good results. However, I'm reasonably enthusiastic about the results I've seen so far from it. So I want to describe, first of all, why we come up with it, and give you an example of how to use it. So let's start with what caused me to do so. Basically, I was for a fairly regular reader who has been using the site. He has chronic fatigue syndrome. He has been proven between sites, so he's keep coming back. And he tossed over his latest sample, which was only about 3 months ago. So it was very recent sample. Went through and did my usual analysis, comparing things and showing things. But then I realized that he had gone into, or may have slipped into what I call the pendulum mode. That is where one particular lab result says, okay, here's what you have to do, and give a bunch of suggestions, let's say 10 things. The next sample comes along, and four of those 10 things are now suddenly to be avoided. The other six stays as they should take. And then the next one after goes back the other way. And I've been through that myself personally when I was recovering from one episode of chronic fatigue. There was this pendulum, swinging back and forth, back and forth. So I ended up creating a video, which is here, explaining it. But the thing I did to try to explain better is that it was not the bacteria, it's metabolites. And then um, went through and did a detail. So you may want to watch this video there. But working through things and reflecting on it, and I decided to try something because I was really curious. And what I did was I looked at the cake estimates of the metabolites being produced. And so I looked at the top one, 99%, and then 98%. And I said, okay, his last test was 99. And guess what? That one sold 99. I went through all the ones which were 99. All of them were the same. Only one actually went down. In other words, his metabolites, although his bacteria shifted, his metabolites, which are the chemicals which often are the ones actually producing the symptoms. The bacteria doesn't produce the symptom. The chemicals being produced by the bacteria produces the symptom. So only one went down, look at 98th percentile, and we actually had better luck. More went down, but all of them were basically high. So that caused me to think about it and say, wait a minute, is there any chance of, instead of looking at the particular bacteria, which can shift back and forth, to actually target the metabolites instead? And the reason to do that is that you are targeting the chemicals which are causing the symptoms, not the bacteria, but the chemicals. And the same chemicals can be produced by 15 or 400, in one case I know, over 500 different bacteria can produce the same chemical. So if you have an imbalance of too much of this chemical, then it's basically bit of good luck or bad luck whether or not you actually get that chemical reduced, because you may reduce a bacteria, but a compensating bacteria may keep producing it, and you end up with what I call is lots of tests and relatively little progress. So that is, this little section here is what caused me to get thinking and say, okay, can I do it? It's sort of a bit of a delightful problem. So the post that's connected to here is getting suggested to make a better light. And so one of the first things I check is, okay, hey, let's check perplexity and say, okay, I took a nice easy chemical and said, okay, how do you change my diet if I want to reduce this? And it came back with, well, eat less insects. Okay, he wasn't eating insects already. Some mushrooms, yeah, I don't think, I'm sure it probably wasn't. Now, the problem is perplexity, and most AI large language models will come things with a form of false logic or inference. And we actually see in classical medical studies the same thing was believed for a long time until studies show it was false, which is to reduce cholesterol, just eat foods low in cholesterol. It turns out doesn't make much difference if you eat high or low cholesterol food. It's other foods you eat which are transformed to cholesterol, which is where the problem is. So it's not a flow through, it is food comes in, bacteria process it. The output of that is, in one case, cholesterol, in another case, is these chemicals. If cholesterol comes in, those same bacteria will break it down in a different way, and you won't get cholesterol out the other end. So that is one of the learning curves to do. So I end up saying, okay, I checked PubMed, and guess what? Absolutely almost nothing showing how to reduce one of these metabolites, and there are several thousand of them by diet or by whatever. That's absolutely nothing. It is a research thing. Mind you, part of the problem is it becomes messier to measure. Occasionally, it's mentioned here and there in some studies. I've seen a few on occasion, but it's very, very rare. So the result is, how do you go about doing it? Well, basically, bacteria to suggest an impact is what microbiome prescription makes use of. And what I realized is if I take a metabolite and use a normal bacterial distribution. By normal bacterial distribution, I mean the distribution seen across a good sized sample, in this case 1,000 healthy individuals, done with shotgun, not with 16, but with shotgun, because I needed the greater, more accurate depth of measurement to do it, because I was using KEGG data to work it, and KEGG data basically reports at a strain level generally, although I modified to upgrade it to species level. Simply because strains are hit and miss for whether or not you get those and report. So the folks over at Prison Biome U shared a thousand of their shotgun results in detail with me, and it created normalized bacterial distribution. And then I computed metabolites from data from the KEGG Encyclopedia of Gene Genomics, which you can go there, and it's free to wander around and take a look at all of the things. And if you go down to here to compounds, you see all the things. And we have, what is it, 19,000 compounds, etc. So you can go over to your heart's content and get there. Being a long-term database person for many, many, many decades, literally decades, 5 decades, probably a reasonably good estimate. Actually, 1981 was the first time I actually explicitly started using databases professionally. Actually, 79, but so you can see how many decades I've been using databases. So basically, from that, I ended up computing a table containing metabolites, the suggestion of modifiers, and the estimated impact. So basically, once I have that, then I could just push in the metabolites you want to change, look at all the impact, and optimize which modifiers will give you the best results. So I did implementation of that, which I just pushed out, and basically very simple. You go and you select your sample, microbiome prescription, and you can specify do you want high percentages or the low percentile. And you have, for example, here I have 8. If you click just high percentile, it means those which are 92 to 100 percentile rankings are the ones which will be picked. If you pick low one, it would be from 0 to 8 percentile. Or you pick both and take both group, and generally I would suggest generally do both. If you just pick high, you are likely to get a heavy bias towards antibiotics, um, so which does the job but may not be best. And then you can go and down and pick what type of modifiers you want, which is my usual way. Is some people like certain things, like some people do not want antibiotics or antivirals. Other people just prefer probiotics and prebiotics, etc. So you go and you pick that. You pick your sample, you click, give me suggestions, you wait a little while because it has a bunch of calculations to do. And now it will produce a list of all the bacteria metabolites which are high and give you the percentile, so you can see, okay, this is what I'm working with. And then you have for oh, they also have low there, but that image has disappeared. I'll see about fixing that shortly. And then you get your suggestions coming in, and the suggestions has the expected positive impact. And what I found real interesting is that often the top one is a magnitude above the next ones. And in this case, it happens to be blackberry, which seems to be the magical food more than anything. And then we have a probiotic, and then we have a Chinese herb or spice, which may be a bit of fun trying to get. And then basically low fiber diet is the other thing, and lavender. And then we have Loredin and other things. So you can go there, and as usual, you can type in a word there, like for example, herb, and go through. So let's walk through actually doing it. And I'll be doing it with the same person's sample. So here we have the sample. Now, it's not listed there, it's experimental. So what you have to do is just click Old UI. And now it comes there, and you get a whole bunch of the old UI features which are there. And that's mainly intended for people who are more knowledgeable, up to speed, etc. And we even have multiple layers. The simple UI was for newbies who are not wanting to do a massive learning curve, and this one is for those who are more technically oriented, who wants to know a lot more information and are willing to invest the time in doing it. So we have a bunch of things, and actually what we have here is research features. You click here, and there we have his samples. And for example, I could go back to his September examples here. I can set whatever percentage I want and then do things. I'm going to just toss in antibiotics out of curiosity, drugs or non-drugs, food preservatives just for whatever, prescription other. And now I'm just going to cloud compute. It will now grind away. It doesn't take excessively long time, but it does take a little bit of time. And now we come back and we find that 178 metabolites which are identified at 92 percentile or above. Good number of focus. And low we have 195, about equal balance. And then we have the suggestion, and we find, guess what? This is the older one from 3 times before. Blackberry is high on the list. So all 3 times, it's the same item which shows up. It doesn't always happen. Then we have rutin, dill, other things, and lavender. Lavender is back there, boswellia, etc. So that is basically it. And now, again, remember, with the search, you can go and do something like herb. And now you get all the herbs listed there and the relative importance. And we can now go and do something like probiotics. Spelling helps. And now you found which probiotics are best. For example, bifidobacterium, Animus, Lactobacillus gasseri. And actually, for this person, Lactobacillus gasseri shows up from the often on the traditional bacteria-driven suggestions. So it's not a particular great surprise. It's somewhat reassuring that it also, this way of going through things also shows up, which is so nice. So you can there, and but you can also see that generally the numbers drop pretty fast. This older one, the best one was 318, and then if you do my old adage of going down halfway, you only have 4 items which are over the high threshold. That is they strongly recommended, and then you have things which are to be considered, and generally you want to check this list against the consensus list from the bacteria. I have not merged them. I don't intend to merge them, at least not at the moment, because I want to keep them separate, and they are interesting to work at. Again, if you try it, and try them, and I'm curious to see whether or not you perceive these special type of metabolites driven suggestions actually seem to make a big thing. My hope is when this person goes through and does the blackberry and whatever else is on his current list, then we will get a report, and we'll hopefully also see a significant change in his clinical thing, particularly his metabolites. Do we have the same number of high metabolites, or are they the same, or are they reduced? If they are reduced, then this would be the confirmation. But that's probably 3 months off. So it's there. Have fun. Enjoy yourself. Um, it is a novel way of doing things. I was very unsure originally whether or not it was going to produce even moderately good results. And lo and behold, I've been pretty pleased with the results. The results keyword look reasonable. Have them being validated. Validation means up to you trying them and seeing if they make a change in your metabolites. And if you do make a change in your metabolites level, we know we have a method which I'll probably raise up in advertising and promoting on. By the moment, it is strictly research experimental. That's basically how we do it. And it's sort of a interesting end and run around a bunch of things, and the numbers are coming out looking actually quite impressive. Okay, that's it.